Spider-Man can famously do whatever a spider can, which is why I've caught him under a big glass and chucked him out of the window. So for some reason, despite being a massive arachnophobe, my favourite superhero is Spider-Man. I can remember exactly how I fell into Spider-Man fandom. I played Neversoft's 2000 Spider-Man game for the PS1, which is an absolute banger. The game lets you unlock a huge amount of bonus costumes, which I became fascinated by and wanted to know more about. During a family holiday, I bought this specific issue of Amazing Spider-Man, and from then on I was hooked. I bought loads of trades and back issues and became infatuated with Ben Reilly and Scarlet Spidey specifically, and then in 2002 Sony released a Spider-Man movie and then everyone was hooked as well. Good times! But I don't want to talk about Spider-Man in the 2000s for this video. I want to go back and see what the web crawler was up to on my favourite console of all time, the Mega Drive. So let's take a look back at every Spider-Man appearance on Sega's legendary 16-bit powerhouse. Spider-Man's Mega Drive story kicks off in a pretty bizarre way, with an appearance in 1989's The Revenge of Shinobi by Sega themselves. The Stage 6 boss starts with a fully licensed battle with Spider-Man, who then transforms into Batman for the second half of the battle. Batman is redrawn in the final release to be less obviously Batman, as Sega did not license the character, but in the prototype version of the game his colours make him look more blatantly Batman. There's a great little ROM hack for the game called the Revenge of Shinobi Restoration, which restores the prototype colours and graphics that I'll link to in the video description if you'd like to give it a go. It's what you're looking at here as well. Anyway, the boss battle itself is pretty memorable all things considered, even if the characters feel strangely out of place in the world of Shinobi. This is a strangely odd way for Spider-Man to debut on the Mega Drive, but here it is nonetheless. Things really kick off for Spider-Man on the Mega Drive with 1991's Spider-Man vs. the Kingpin. A joint development between Sega of America, Technopop and Recreational Brainware, this 2D action title sees you chasing down the Kingpin, who has rigged New York with a series of bombs and framed Spidey as the person who planted them. You have a set amount of time to disarm the bombs across the entire game, so there's an urgency to the action that makes everything feel really frantic. Kingpin has also employed a variety of villains from Spidey history to protect the location of each bomb, and it's up to Spidey to take them down, learn where the next bomb is to disarm it, and restore his name. This Mega Drive version is a linear stage-based game that lets you swing and climb around these substantial maze-like stages looking for each boss. The game would be greatly expanded for its 1993 Mega CD release, but that's a story for a different video. There's a cool little photography mechanic that rewards you with cash for taking photos of different enemies, and you also have different abilities like a web shield to employ that make quick work of certain enemies. It's a good little game with snappy controls and really great feeling swinging, but you'll have to learn the fastest sequence through each stage to complete it in the allotted time, meaning it may demand some replays to learn the best route through each stage. Good fun either way. 1993's Spider-Man and the X-Men in Arcade's Revenge put Spider-Man and the X-Men together to rescue the remaining X-Men who have been kidnapped by a mysterious truck with a big hose on it that sucks them off. Turns out the villain Arcade is behind this, which always confused me as it made me think that this was a port of some Spider-Man and X-Men arcade game that I was unaware of, but no, it's just a character called Arcade. The game was co-developed by Software Creations and the Black Team, and published by Flying Edge. The first stage of this title is always a Spider-Man one, where you have to collect a series of flashing bombs in order, similar to something like Bomb Jack. From then on you gain access to Spider-Man, Wolverine, Cyclops, Storm and Gambit, and each character has 2 stages each that you can play in any order. Each stage basically tasks you with running and jumping around until you find a boss. Defeat them to continue until you eventually unlock the final stage, which lets you take on Arcade himself. It's a fun little game with tight character control, but the large maze-like stages do make progression feel a little more challenging than it needs to be, even when compared to Spider-Man vs. the Kingpin, which has very similar stage design. Not a bad game by any stretch of the imagination, but the large stages do make exploration a little tedious. With Spider-Man and Venom Maximum Carnage, we get our first belt-scrolling Spidey beat-em-up for the Mega Drive. Released in 1994 and developed again by Software Creations and the Black Team, Spider-Man and Venom have to team up to take down Carnage, who has broken out of Ravencroft prison with Shriek to exact his revenge. Carnage teams up with a whole bunch of past Spidey villains, and you can play as either Spider-Man or Venom to take him down. This is a massive improvement over Arcade's Revenge, with some wonderful aesthetics, big sprites and cool comic panel-like cutscenes. Each stage has some decent variety to it as well. You'll definitely spend a lot of time walking to the right and beating up thugs, but you'll also have to scale buildings, get into boss fights, do some platforming as well as swing about. It's also worth mentioning that the swinging is mapped to Y on a 6-button controller, but the game does support standard 3-button controls as well. The controls are also nice and responsive and snappy, making this one a real joy to play. This is probably the best Spider-Man game on the Mega Drive, and the game I would easily recommend for anyone looking for a genuinely great Spidey experience on the system. Great fun in 2-player as well, and the first print run also housed the game in a cool red cartridge, which really stands out if you're crawling through bins of loose Mega Drive carts. In 1995's Spider-Man, developed by Marvel Software, Western Technologies and the Black Team, is based on the 1994 animated series with the awesome theme song. The game is infamous for its really abrasive gems-powered soundtrack, which often has songs from it appearing in the worst video game music of all time playlists on YouTube. But the music is not the game's biggest problem, it's the controls. Spider-Man feels horrible to control. You can climb and stick to ceilings, but you can't swing, and everything feels really sticky and nasty, like the character is fighting against your inputs. The stages are also full of respawning enemies, which means any backtracking you might want to do greets you with the same enemies you've already defeated. This is an absolute chore of a game that at least looks fairly decent, but it's just such an unpleasant thing to play that you'd think it was a much earlier Mega Drive release, not something from 1995. Avoid. And finally we have the direct sequel to Maximum Carnage. This is Venom, Spider-Man, Separation Anxiety, also from 1995. Once again, this title is developed by Software Creations and the Black Team, and you'd like to think after the success of Maximum Carnage we'd have another great little Spidey beat-em-up on our hands. Unfortunately, everything looks, sounds and feels worse than the game that came before it. Sprites are smaller, there's less of the flat-shaded comic book aesthetic, and there's a lot more dithered visuals and even some pre-rendered stuff. The big issue is the game just doesn't feel as responsive as Maximum Carnage. It's also a lot harder with no difficulty options or continues to offset this. I don't understand what has happened here because Software Creations and the Black Team had a good foundation to build on with Maximum Carnage, but Separation Anxiety is just a worse version of that game in every way. It's not as horrible to play as 1994's Spider-Man based on the animated series, but it's still not something I'd recommend to a Spidey fan looking for a cool retro game based on the character they know and love. A real shame. So there we have it, every Spider-Man game and appearance on the Mega Drive. This is a real mixed bag considering several games were developed by the same studios. I think Spider-Man and Venom Maximum Carnage really takes the biscuit when it comes to the best game from the bunch, but I don't think you should avoid Spider-Man vs. the Kingpin or Spider-Man and the X-Men in Arcade's Revenge. They're not up to the same standard, but there's some good fun to be had, especially if you're a Spidey fan. Thank you very much for watching this video. A special thanks to our generous Patreon supporters who you can see here. If you'd like to join this hallowed hall of legends, then you can head over to patreon.com/SEGADriven and back us at the $3 tier or higher. Take care, and I'll catch you next time.